All right, my friends, welcome back to Kids Week at the Intrepid Museum. Are you guys having a good time? Come on, you can do better than that. A good time? Yeah, absolutely. All right. Once again, everyone, my name's Alicia. We are so excited to welcome you back here on site to Kids Week 2022 at the Intrepid Sea Air and Space Museum. We have so much fun stuff going on. As you might have noticed, we've got a lot of NASA scientists and engineers all around the floor today, telling you all about some exciting projects that they're working on. And as promised, everyone, we have a very special guest for you today. So, as you may know, NASA is currently exploring Mars, searching for signs of past life. And we are so thrilled to have with us today Dr. Adrian Brown, who I'm going to welcome to the stage. He is the Deputy Program Scientist for the Mars 2020 mission. So he is here. He's going to tell us all about some of the work that he's doing and also answer some of your questions afterwards as well. So stick around for that if you do have any questions. And I'm going to pass it on over to Dr. Adrian Brown. Take it away.
Thanks very much, Alicia, and thanks very much, everybody, for coming along. So here we are on the USS Intrepid, surrounded by aviation history, from the aircraft that you see up in our flight deck here and up above us. I'm here to talk to you about the latest technological achievement of NASA on Mars. It's the story of perseverance on Mars. But before we get started, I just want to say a special thank you to everybody who's come along here at Kids Week. It's been great to be able to speak to kids, young and old, about the work that we do at NASA. It's really been an honor, especially given what we've been through the last couple of years. So let's get started. All right, the history of the mission so far. Let's move to the next slide if we can. That's just a couple of slides ago before what I want to get to. Let me see if I can just make this adjustment here. Okay, so this slide is meant to set the scene. This is the overall raison d'etre, or the reason why we're on Mars. We want to be able to collect samples on the surface of Mars. We also have a helicopter that has conducted the first flights on another planet called Ingenuity. And we want to make sure that we're able to core rocks on the surface to make sure that we can get those samples and pull them back into our rover body. All right, the first thing that we started with was an amazing landing. I hope you've all seen this. This is the start of our landing sequence where we had a parachute ignite, and then we had this amazing entry, descent, and landing, 7 minutes of terror, where we got these images from the surface of Mars just as we touched down safely. This had never been done before, so this was another first. We hadn't got a photo of a rover taking its first little leap onto Mars' surface. We landed at this place called Jezero Crater, which is a 45-kilometer across crater. And we've landed next to a special feature called the Delta, which we'll talk a little bit about in the future. So far, we've been going around that an area where we landed, which has a lot of sand dunes. And we've traveled further already and faster than any previous rover. Some of our mobility records already. We have the longest one-time drive, or one-soul drive, which is now up to 300 meters. We're beating our own records. That's 300 meters without talking to anybody. So that's just the rover doing its own thing to get across the surface of Mars. We are the fastest rover on Mars, and we've covered the largest distance in 1 year so far. Again, we expect to beat that record as we go further into our mission. We've been very, very productive. We've already turned back 50 gigabytes of data from the mission. We've got 23 cameras. We've taken over 100,000 images using those cameras and got them back. And as you'll see in just around the end of my slides, all of those images are available to the public. We have on board this instrument here called MOXIE. MOXIE is a very special instrument because it's inside the body of the rover and it's collecting the atmosphere from up above the rover, The rover is surrounded by a CO2 atmosphere. So that's carbon and 2 oxygens. Now, the MOXIE has on board its smarts to break apart the carbon and just leave the 2 oxygens. And so that's pretty special for us because we really need those oxygens, not just for breathable oxygen, but we also need it for fuel for later on. If you were sending yourself to Mars and getting yourself back, this is what we need to do to get you fuel for the journey back. The most important job that Perseverance has is collecting the rocks from the Martian surface. We consider this the first in the great arc of the Mars sample return cycle. So the Mars sample return is relying on our mission and our scientists to pick the best surface targets and drill them with the rocks, and pull them back into the rover's body. So what you can see here is some really cool shots. This is the turret that we call, which is at the end of our arm. You'll be able to see that if you go up to the full-scale model just above us here. The full-scale model just shows you a little bit. The rover has the arm in like this, but it can extend it over 2 meters. And it has a turret, so the turret rotates and puts the drill out, and then the drill gets onto the rock's surface. We're drilling that rock there. So to make sure that we've actually got the sample back, we have what we call a cache cam, and we take an image of the sample that's being collected. And so you can see a little bit of rock there. That little bit of rock will eventually make its way back to Earth on the Mars sample return mission. So that's what's so exciting about it. We want to be very careful about that we collect the best ones, obviously. So I love this image because it gives you an idea of how far we've progressed in the mission already. Already we've got 7 here samples. These are the same ECAM images of the samples as they were taken. So these are, and the locations of each of the samples as they were taken around our path. So we'll be adding to these. We have a total of 43 tubes. So we'll be sending all of those 43 tubes samples of rock that then will eventually make their way back to Earth. These are 2 very cool images that are called selfies. We do these with the mast, having the camera on the end of the mast, taking a set of photos, and these are taken at special times during the mission. The 2 times here that we've taken these most historic features are, this one was the first one to be taken, and it shows Ingenuity out on the surface behind the rover. Why we took that was because we had guaranteed to the helicopter team that we'd give them a trip to Mars, but we weren't sure whether it was going to be able to get down there unscathed. So as soon as the rover was able to take a selfie of the Ingenuity in a safe position away from the rover, everybody breathed a huge sigh of relief. And our other selfie here is, this is us taking our first sample of the rock Rochette. So if you look here, you'll see down here, there's actually a little pock mark, 2 little pock marks, look a little bit fake, and you probably can't see them at the back, but they're our first 2 pock marks into the rock Rochette, which we took a double sample of. We like to take double samples of rocks when we can. You can ask me questions about that if you like during the question session. All right, so I did talk about the historical nature of the helicopter, Ingenuity. This was an image from its first flight on another planet. And Ingenuity has 2 cameras. It has one camera that looks out ahead of it, and it has one camera that looks down below it. This is an image taken of several images taken from the camera that looks down below, and so you can see the shadow of Ingenuity on the surface here. So whenever you see the shadow of a helicopter or a shadow of something looking like a buzzing bee or something like that, you know that that was taken by the Ingenuity down-looking camera. Some of the historical records already, they've rocked up 19 flights. Originally, this was designed for 5 flights, but NASA headquarters has seen through to the 19th flight and have paid for all of the helicopter flights up till then. So it's fantastic that we're still supporting that, that helicopter too. And here's another image from from Ingenuity's front helicopter camera. I just want you to see if there's anything funny in this image or anything strange in this image. The first thing is this is a strut from the helicopter, so don't worry about that. But do you see anything else in this image that looks a little interesting? Okay, yep. I hear, I'm going to repeat that answer. I think you got it right. The rover is actually in that image. So up here in the corner here, you have great eyes, young man. That is the Perseverance rover. So we were able to capture the rover on the surface of Mars with the Ingenuity helicopter's cameras, which is fantastic. We also are heading, as our next section, in summertime, we'll be getting to the Martian Delta that we landed next to. We're planning to spend a year at the Delta, investigating the Delta, because the Delta is the evidence of liquid water on Mars. The Delta really had to be formed when there was liquid water, a lake in Lake Jezero. So we really want to know how long that lake was around for. So once we get to the Delta, we'll be doing things like taking samples of the Delta at the top and at the bottom, and trying to work out how long that period of time was. We'll do dating of the samples when they get back to our Earth laboratories, and we'll learn more and more as we look at these samples of the Delta about the history of liquid water on Mars. Okay, and we also have here, this is our Soul by Soul mission path so far in white. And just here in blue is an indicated region where we might be able to go. That distance hasn't been covered yet, but this is quite likely an area, that a way that we would go up around this sand dune area here, across to the Delta, and then start doing all our sampling of the Delta and cross across around this big Belva crater here, and then head out to the inlet channel. This is the inlet channel, and this is the crater walls of Jezero crater here. So we'll probably head up to that location because it's nice and flat and probably a good place to put some of our samples down so that the Mars sample return mission can pick them up from there. That hasn't been done yet, but that's a possible route that we're looking at the moment. Perseverance and Ingenuity are continuing to fulfill and exceed our expectations. We've tested aerial and roving explorers, how they work together, explored the diverse landing site. We've been seeking signs of ancient life. We haven't found it yet, but we're looking for it very carefully. And anyone who's talked to me about Martian samples or the terrestrial samples and stromatolites over there, you can ask questions about that as well. But anybody who's talked to me about that, that's a very big interest of mine as well. We've collected rock samples for potential return to Earth, and we paved the way for further human exploration of Mars. Now, this is a very important thing to get across. Everybody here, and indeed at home as well, can have unprecedented access to the data. I mentioned at the start that NASA makes all of the images instantly available to anybody going onto our website. So we update that daily, and everybody gets to view our images as soon as we take them. So if you go for raw images, you can take these websites down. Also, we have another site that's called Where is Perseverance. You can follow where we went in the mission on a day-by-day basis, and you're using software that was designed by the mission for our mission operations. We're holding nothing back. The public has everything for this mission. It's fantastic. We have Explore with Perseverance, and also we have the Sounds of Mars, because we have the first recordings from using a couple of different microphones on board the camera, on board the rover. All right, so I'll just close it there and see if there's any other questions. And remember to follow at Perseverance, at NASA Perseverance. Yes. Okay, any other questions? Anybody?
If anyone has any questions, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll come around. Any questions at all?
Did anybody want to ask about the stromatolites that we have? So,
Oh, we got a question.
oh yes,
Here
we
we go.
have that question.
Do you think people would use Moxie like in the future, like if we ever settled Mars?
That's a great question. Yes. Would we use Moxie? Yes. The same technology will be used on board future human flights to Mars because there's there's very little oxygen naturally in the Martian atmosphere at the moment. But there is carbon dioxide. As I mentioned, on Moxie, we've got a way to get rid of the carbon and just be left with the oxygen. And that's what we need to breathe. So once we get there to Mars, we're going to have to produce oxygen using the same technology as Moxie. It won't be the same unit, but it'll be something very, very much like it. Yeah, great question. Any other questions about terraforming or Elon Musk or anything like that? I can probably get in trouble with questions like that.
So what is the plan to try and retrieve some of the samples that are being taken by the rover right now? And do you have a deadline or like a time frame for when those samples might be returned to Earth for studies?
It's a great question. So when are we going to get those samples back for the Mars sample return? That's right. So the plan currently is that in about 2028, we'll be able to launch the second element. As I said, we consider ourselves the first element of the Mars sample return mission or cycle. Then the second element is all three elements will have to launch to Mars in roughly 2028. So those things include one, a fetch rover, because we need a small rover to collect the samples and bring it back to one position. The fetch rover also needs what we call a Mars ascent vehicle. This is something that we've never done before. We've never launched something off of another planet. So that is a very big hurdle, something that we're currently looking at how to do that. And then we also have what's called the Mars orbital element, which will catch the Mars ascent vehicle and then take it into an Earth orbit. So it has to have another rocket to get it out of Earth, get it out of Mars and to Earth. And then once we get it to Earth, we're pretty good at, once we get things to Earth in a low Earth orbit, we'll be able to decelerate it, and probably it'll be landed somewhere like Utah. Utah is a favorite place. Also, Australia is a favorite place to land things somewhere not inhabited, but somewhat not completely remote, like Antarctica or something like that. So we'll be getting those samples back in that fashion, and probably around the mid-2030s is a sort of thoughtful plan. That's if Elon Musk doesn't get there first and return the samples for us. But we'll see how things go. It's going to be an exciting time.
All right, any other questions, anyone? Oh, yep, we got them back here.
My question is not that much about Mars. I mean, Kids Week. We as a kids, we always dreamed to be an astronaut, right? What is the path to NASA? How to make our kids to have this dream accomplished and make this dream come true?
Right. So you're asking how can kids take part in something like the Mars sample return or go to Mars? Was that? Yeah. Okay. So I can talk about both those subjects. And yes, we're here at Kids Week, so it's fantastic for kids because this sample return mission with the kids that are now around 5 to 10 years old, in 20 years and maybe 15 years, these kids will be students, graduate students, PhD students. Maybe they'll be doing an apprenticeship or something like that. And they could be getting the first samples back into a lab. They could be the first people to crack these samples open and inspect them in their lab around the country and around the world, in fact. Because NASA is taking very seriously its international obligation to make sure that we involve as many of our international partners in getting the samples back and making sure that they're available to the research community. So everybody around the world can apply to NASA to look at shave off a little bit of one of the samples and pass it through their instruments and potentially maybe discover the signs of previous life on Mars. That would be a magnificent discovery if we will use that. That's certainly within the realms of possibility.
Great question, because we definitely are looking to inspire our youth here for sure. And what wonderful things are coming up there with Mars. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and come up on stage with you.
Yeah, and everybody, make sure that if you haven't already, make sure that you see the full scale model rover. It's absolutely awesome. It's upstairs from us on the flight deck with the shuttle.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Dr. Adrian Brown. I don't know about you guys. I thought that presentation rocked. Huh? Thanks so much. We love having you guys here for Kids Week, and that was just spectacular. It's so interesting to hear all about what's going on up there. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Alicia.
All right, so everyone, we are off to an amazing start, but there is still so much more to do here. Do not forget also to head over to our Maker Zone right over here. They are making Mars rovers actually right now. So if you want to make your own little Mars rover, head on over to our Education Maker Zone. Or, of course, as he was saying, if you haven't already seen our Mars Perseverance rover and Ingenuity helicopter full-scale models, head on up to our Space Shuttle Pavilion. They're right underneath the Space Shuttle. And guys, where else can you say that you saw a Mars rover on an aircraft carrier under a space shuttle? Amazing. All right, so head on up there and see that. Also, everyone, stick around because coming up at 3 o'clock, we are going to be welcoming back another fabulous NASA scientist to the stage here for another fascinating talk about Mars. So hopefully we'll see you all then. But everyone, have a wonderful Kids Week, all right? Put your hands together one more time for Dr. Adrian Brown, and thanks so much. We'll see you at 3 o'clock.